Good evening. Welcome to the September 19, 2023 City Council meeting. The meeting is hereby called to order. Members of the public may attend this City Council meeting in person or may watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and at the city's website at www.wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and/or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Zoom call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in our council chambers and the cable channel. You will be asked to unmute, and then you may begin your comment. All public comments must include your full name and address. Second item on the agenda this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everybody to please stand and follow along. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Next item this evening is the roll call. Please let the record reflect that all members of the council are in attendance this evening. I'd also like to note that the council participated in a workshop and reviewed and discussed the following. We received an update of the Bar and Grill survey and SWOT analysis discussion was had. And after that, we reviewed and discussed the draft Wayzata Boulevard corridor study and plan. Next item this evening on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Would someone care to make a motion to approve the agenda as is, or would anyone care to make any changes?
I'll make that motion.
To approve the agenda as is?
Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Iverson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been first and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. The next item this evening is the public forum. As a reminder for those members of the public in attendance this evening and who are interested in speaking, we ask that you please state your name, address, indicate if you are representing a group, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If the item you wish to speak about is something that is on the agenda, for those that are in person, we ask that you please fill out a form at the table at the back of the room and hand it to staff. For those that are watching via Zoom, please send a note via chat to staff and let them know what agenda item you wish to speak about. We also require that your camera is turned on when you speak. First item, we have a number of items for the public forum this evening. And before we get to those, I would just like to take a moment to address those that are here in the room, but also who may be watching. Sorry, this is going to be a tough comment. There is no community I am prouder of than the city of Wayzata. I am proud of its citizens. I am proud of the people who choose to come do business here. I am proud of our staff, and I am proud of my fellow council members. We have values that we hold very dear. We respect each other, we respect the community, and we hold these values very dear to us. And those are values of diversity and inclusion, of respect. We honor one another, and that is unshakable. And so for that, I would like to thank my colleagues. I would like to thank staff, and I would like to thank this community for all of the things that they hold dear and that will never change. And while there may be some individuals who don't believe in the same things that we do, I feel that we don't always get it right all the time, but we do the very best we can, and we stand together and we hold strong to our values and our beliefs. And with that, we will go ahead and enter into the public forum. And the first item this evening is a recognition of our Community Development Director, Emily Gellner. Emerging Leader Award winner by Luke Fisher, Executive Director of the League of Minnesota Cities. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And tonight we have Luke Fisher, Executive Director of the League of Minnesota Cities, also Daniel Lightfoot with the League of Minnesota Cities as well. Luke is the new Executive Director. I just want to announce that. Maybe a few months now, Luke?
3 or 4 months into this role.
3 or 4 months into the role, and really happy that he's here. He's a local resident, former city manager, and a lot of experience, a great just approach to local government and serving. And I just wanted to let the council know he's here to support us, and just I'm grateful that he's leading the organization. But this is not about Luke tonight. This is about somebody else very special in the room, and I'll let you kind of go through that.
Right. Well, thank you very much, City Manager Dahl. I certainly didn't expect that. Madam Mayor, members of the council, as the city manager alluded to, I'm from the area. I live in Plymouth, and I know that this is a community that believes in belonging very much, and that's something that I've seen in my experience here. And I appreciate your leadership as the mayor, as the council, as city staff, and the ways that you have stepped up to make sure that this is a community that I know that people feel like they can be part of. That wasn't my scripted comment, but I think it's worth saying as someone who lives in the neighborhood, right, and appreciates Wayzata very much. As Jeff said, I'm here tonight on behalf of the League of Minnesota Cities, on behalf of our board of directors, and on behalf of our members to kick off some recognition that we're going to do tonight. And I think sometimes recognition needs context before you can do it in the right way. So I'm going to do the context piece, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Daniel Lightfoot, to do the fun piece, the exciting piece, and the part that feels extra good, right? So the League of Minnesota Cities is an association that represents 838 out of the state's 855 cities. So nearly every city in the state we represent. Our largest member is the city of Minneapolis. Any guesses on our smallest member?
Not me.
Okay,
No.
it's the city of Barrie. Any guesses on Barrie's population? 54. Any other guesses?
125.
125. If we were playing Price is Right rules, you'd both be out because you're over. Barrie has a population of just 19 people. Just
Wow.
19 people. And as an association, we take the obligation that we have to support our members, Minneapolis, Wayzata, or Barrie, very seriously. And we do that in a myriad of ways. One of the ways that we do that is we advocate on behalf of our members at the state capitol. Daniel is one of our lobbyists. He's part of a team of 6 folks that advocate on your behalf at the state capitol. But they bring over legislative policies that are crafted by our members. So groups of members come together over the summer to establish our legislative policies and priorities. We have a research hotline that's available to you and your city staff. And I see your city attorney over there nodding. City attorneys enjoy our research hotline too, right? And it's a big team sport. But that group answers about 6,000 calls on behalf of our members every year. We do training, conferences, and development opportunities for council members and city staff so you can develop and refine your skills as a leader. And we provide insurance to our members, property casualty and workers' comp insurance. Now, a lot of times when we talk about who we are as an organization, it maybe sounds a little bit like we're bragging. And, you know, I believe in Minnesota exceptionalism very much. It's deep in my core. But when I have the opportunity to connect with my colleagues across the country, I can tell you that we've got probably the best league in the whole country. And I think it's because we're as close to our members as we are. It's because we're close to city councils like you here in Wayzata and city staff like you have here in Wayzata. Part of our experience with our members, we get to see the very best of the best across the state, and we know the best when we see it, and that's why we're happy to be here tonight to recognize Emily for being one of the best. And so on behalf of our board of directors, all of our staff at the League and our members, I want to say congratulations to you before I turn it over to Daniel to do the really good part here. So, Daniel?
Thank you, Luke, and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Daniel Lightfoot, and as Luke said, I serve as one of the League's intergovernmental relations representatives where I get to work closely with Emily. So it's only fitting that I get to do part of the fun part today, and I appreciate Luke for bringing me out here this evening and for you all to allow us to recognize Emily tonight. So I am very pleased to be here this evening to recognize Emily as the winner of this year's Emerging Leader Award. The award was first presented to Emily just back in June at the League of Minnesota Cities annual conference in Duluth. And the Emerging Leader Award is given, just for some context, in recognition of and encouragement of elected and appointed officials who are early in their service to municipal government but have made really meaningful contributions to their city and who show promise for continuing service and leadership. And Emily certainly is the embodiment of those ideals and what this award is all about. It is a relatively new award. It was first given back in 2022 and joins a couple of other awards that the League provides as well as one of the League's individual highest honors. As an emerging leader, Emily has already established a very impressive record of achievement, as noted by her nominators. As most of you know, she was hired back in 2019 and became Wayzata's first female community development director. And since then, she has grown the department from 3 to 5 full-time positions and added several consultants. Among her contributions, Emily has been instrumental in the city's lakefront improvement projects. She led the establishment and operations of a TIF district that will generate more than $20 million for redevelopment projects, city infrastructure, blight removal, and other public amenity-related improvements. Recognizing the importance of cultural awareness and housing challenges, which is very near and dear to my heart as one of the League lobbyists that works on housing policy, and I lean on Emily quite a bit on housing policy questions. She has developed eligible affordable housing projects, a 10-unit housing project that has since utilized some new TIF proceeds to help preserve affordable housing in this city, which I know is a big priority of the city of Wayzata. The League recently profiled Emily in an issue of the Minnesota City Magazine as well. And in that story, City Administrator Jeffrey Dahl added that Emily does a tremendous job of empowering colleagues, turning mistakes into learning opportunities, and assembling a diverse workforce whose strengths and personalities complement one another. All of these characteristics demonstrate the kind of leadership that the League set out to recognize when we established this award. Let's see what Emily's colleagues had to say about her in a short video that I'd like to turn your attention to the screen now.
Emily is the epitome of an emerging leader. She's been with us only a few years, but in that short time has really demonstrated all of the characteristics of a young leader.
Emily is the whole package. So in addition to dealing with community issues, concerns, communicating them to her staff, the council, the rest of the community, she does that well. She checks all the boxes. In addition to that, she's built this wonderful team that communicates so well together.
Emily is very understanding, both in terms of my personal life and how that overlaps with my professional life, but also in terms of what it's like to struggle with some of these professional issues very early.
Emily is an incredibly professional person, but she always comes to the table with a smile on her face and with an open mind and a big heart.
I think some takeaways from Emily's leadership that others can learn are: it's okay to make mistakes, learn from them, grow from them. It's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's really important to not forget about the person that we all are. Take time to get to know people, learn their strengths, and give them the tools that they need in order to grow.
Emily is in the right place at the right time. This is a great time of change for Wayzata, both in terms of our public investments through Panaway and the boardwalk and our park system, but also through private investments, like some of the major projects that we have here around town.
She takes a leadership role in a lot of the initiatives that not only we've asked her as a city council and as a community to look into, but items that she is very passionate about personally.
There are a lot of things that are happening at once, and it takes someone who's both an extremely good communicator and an extremely good delegator in order to be able to handle all of those things.
Emily, congratulations on being awarded the Emerging Leader Award. You're so deserving. I can't wait to see where your career and overall life takes you. You're the best.
Emily, congratulations on this award. I am so very proud of you. I know the rest of the council is, and the staff as well. We wish you continued success in your career, and we look forward to working with you for many years to come.
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use to improve their hearing almost.
On behalf of the league, Emily, congratulations again. You have shown already in a very short career so many accomplishments, and we are very excited to see all of the heights that your career will take you to. So congratulations again on behalf of the league.
Speech.
I gave a 9-minute acceptance speech at the ceremony. I feel like the expectation was 3 minutes, and so I used 9 minutes. So I'll keep this to 30 seconds. At my acceptance speech, I first thanked my parents because they were big role models in my life about working hard. And I also want to thank my colleagues here, especially many of you are in the room. I respect you very much and love working with you. So thank you for putting up with me sometimes. And I'm a little tense and stressed, but we're all trying to do good work. Thank you for the council for your exceptional professionalism and support of myself and the whole team. Thank you to our attorney and manager as well. You've supported me a lot in the years that I've been here. I really appreciate it. And overall, I'm just really thankful. A lot of people work really hard and don't get any recognition. So I'm feeling super grateful for being recognized for this. And I set my mind to this goal in 2009 to be a community development director. And it took 10 years to get to this position and a few more years to feel recognized in the role. And I'm feeling really grateful. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you, Emma. Well, I said, the video encapsulates how I feel about the work that you've done and the person that you are. I'll open it up to the rest of the council if they have any thoughts. Kathy?
Well done. You've done a great job, and we're very lucky as a community to have you. So keep up the hard work, and we saw some stuff that they are working on, some long-term things that are 10 years out. So there's a lot of long-term planning that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people and residents aren't aware of. And so it's not just the short term, but the long term, and good job on all that.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'll just say your smile's contagious and you brighten a room, and it's just wonderful working with you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll add in, everything that you did to deserve this has been said, so I don't need to repeat it, but I think we've all felt that way for many years, so congratulations.
I agree. Emily, well done, and be grateful, but also be really proud because you earned it.
Well said. Well, thanks again. Thank you for allowing me to share in the receipt. Well, I didn't receive it. You received it. But to be able to witness the award ceremony, it was, it was a super proud moment. From my seat, it was lovely getting to meet your mother as well. I'm so glad that she was able to share in that with you. Just keep up the great work, and we look forward to the next award in the horizon. All right, perfect. Oh, absolutely, please. Absolutely. Why don't we head up to the front of the dais and we'll take a picture all together. Oh, that's right. All right. Well, it is, it always brightens our day when we get to recognize someone from staff or counselor of the community for a job well done. All right, we are still in the public forum. Our next item this evening is an update of Panaway Lake Walk Phase 2A construction and budget by Jesse Houlihan of Onyx Strategic Partners and Bob Jansen of Kraus Anderson, City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as you mentioned, Jesse Houlihan and Bob Jansen are here. Jesse's our owner's rep. Panaway is a very complicated and big project, especially for a small city to undertake. So we have an owner's rep that really advocates for the city. And then we have Bob Jansen representing Kraus Anderson, who's our construction manager, who they're really managing the details and the processes of the project. So they're here tonight, given there's a lot going on the lakefront, to kind of just give an update at where we're at with kind of the two main variables of the project, budget and timeline, and answer any questions that the council has.
Thank you so much for having us. Do you want us to click, or would you like to click?
Yeah, you can do it.
Sounds good. It's so great to see all of you again. It's nice to be here updating with pretty good news as well as the project continues to progress in alignment with our original goals and expectations. So that's fantastic. Our overall timeline, like we talked about, Jeff mentioned tonight, what we're going to go through. You've met Bob and I before. Thank you for having us. So as far as the budget, we get going, we kind of buy out a project. Our contracts are set at that point. So you guys approved of those contracts, and then there's certain elements that we're tracking actual costs as they incur, right? So as you see us come back now, we're updating based on, you already know the contract elements that have been let, but we're updating you based on the things that have progressed that we're continuing to watch as well. I know you've seen a more detailed spreadsheet. These are the same details, just rolled up to be a little bit simpler. So related to construction hard costs, those are the numbers you've already seen as far as what we've issued in contracts. I do want to note that does include the elements that we've talked about with value engineering, both what we're delivering tonight and our projected expectations. Relative to contingency, we started the project with $390. We have that broken out into two categories now, noting Kraus Anderson's recommendation to support the second assembly out on the lakefront. We can talk about that from a budget standpoint. We'll talk about that from a schedule standpoint as well. But that still leaves us with about $200,000 of remaining contingency within the project. So that means within your existing contract, money we don't have committed, we do want set aside. We want to continue to watch, look at the weather we encounter and conditions we encounter. It's there to help us manage risk in the project, but it's also buffer. That means we have some space within the budget still to help us get to completion. General conditions costs, I know I've mentioned this in the past, but I always like defining it because I've heard people talk about it so many ways. But general conditions are all of the costs that are a part of your project that don't remain a part of the physical asset. So temporary conditions, temporary trailer, staff fee, things like that. It's not your physical asset. So that's stable to what we've seen in the past. It's in alignment with our expectations. If anything, it's adjusted relative to our duration on schedule. So it's right-sized there. Soft costs, design, elements like that kind of roll up into that soft cost category. One element that's a little different in this project is we have a little bit more testing and monitoring. So we have a large contract for that component in soft costs just due to the fact that we're building something pretty extraordinary in the lakefront. So far, we're pretty... We're on track to not spend all of that amount too, but we feel this is a healthy representation of where the budget's at to date. We, in talking with the city, continue to orient around a goal I wanted to just reiterate here with you guys today. Our goal is to end this project on time, on budget, and our goal in doing that is we will achieve that via smart risk management. So when I talk about those elements of cost that aren't completely out the door, we want to be smart in how we make those choices, how we manage things to bring some of that money back, but then also continued value engineering, looking for smart choices and opportunities to save money that way. Now, value engineering, this is us looking at the design and thinking about new ways to save money. That can be means and methods, how we put it together. It can be new materials. I know this is not the first time that we've talked to you guys about that over the course of planning this project. I did want to update based on what we expected to deliver and what we're delivering today. So what we projected on steel structure redesign, we had hoped to deliver around $200,000. Thankfully, Kraus Anderson's here today, contractually delivering to you about $204,688 for the value engineering and redesign the substructure related to the lake walk. We hoped to deliver savings related to the steel, and that was related to a fastening component that our winning bidder suggested there was a simpler way to achieve our desired result. When we looked at that with our engineer, and it is their job to do so, they deemed this not adequate to what we wanted to see on our project. I don't believe it was a structural issue. I think it was, well, I mean, it was a rust issue. I don't know if I'm gonna add anything there.
It wasn't a structural issue. It was just more of a long-term integrity type concern. Bring down maintenance if we go with the more of an epoxy setting that'll last longer. So ERA, the structural engineer record, recommended that we stick to the fastening, the connection that was in the plans, and that's how we're proceeding.
And I actually don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, that is the job of this process, is to hire the right lead, to then work with our subcontractors, our trade partners, to come up with good suggestions. But of course, our architects and engineers are the gatekeepers deciding what's a good fit. So in that case, we agree and support their decision not to make that change. And then relative to the dock redesign, we did look at structural component already, but Krause-Anderson is continuing to work with the winning bidder on options related to that to deliver savings. We will deliver or talk about that in future meetings. I don't know if we want to add anything on that today. So I know you've seen schedule one way, which is this way. In the past, this is the critical path method schedule. So you see all these activities linked, showing you these critical dependencies, so that if things change, it affects your end date. So we're showing you this, we're on track with our CPM schedule, we're on track with our overall delivery timeline. But Krause-Anderson's been working with their team to create a more visually appealing, sort of easier to look at and see, like, where are we at, right? Because you look at this and you're like, cool. I don't even know exactly where we're at in space and time, maybe right here. But this is a beautiful visual representation they created, kind of overlaying a few things, showing you a different way, kind of where are we at. And it's hard to tell with construction on the water. We're driving pile, but it's underwater. You see this assembly moving along. You can go look and see the work sticking out of the water, but it's not super visual yet. Pretty soon, we're setting steel out there, we'll be welding, and in about a month we'll be setting precast. That's going to get a lot more visual, moving big pieces out there. But for here, you can see our pile progress to date. And I would love, Bob, if you don't mind talking about the second assembly and a little bit of schedule so far.
Yeah, so with this project, from when we initially put together the schedule to when we started the project, we had some scheduling concerns with the DNR on when we could get started out in the water. So we've made adjustments with the contractor, Zenith. That's where you see a second rig out there, so we can expedite and get into a production piling assembly, which now we can expedite the driving process. The whole goal here is really to get the barges out of the water before ice gets into the water. So we're tracking with that second assembly. Now we are on schedule based on our initial schedule. So I mean, we put together this schedule here, if you want to go to the next schedule. So we'll start updating this on the website as well on a weekly basis. So you can see we'll start adding, taking off these loading bars, start showing as tasks start to become complete. I mean, really next week, you're going to start seeing a lot more activity out there. I mean, the biggest part of this project really has been the pile driving. I mean, it's been the focus for the last 2 months of the project, and it is a timely part of the project. So now we're moving into where you're going to start seeing structural steel and these caps being welded in place. And we are in tune with what our initial schedule was as far as when our completion dates are. So, I mean, really to stick to the point, I mean, our goal here and with this is to complete this project on time and in budget. And I mean, so we'll introduce these other tools, put these out on the websites and be able to show where the milestone dates are. This is a lot more user-friendly, so everyone can see how we're tracking.
On his CPM schedule, what's highlighted in yellow is getting the barges out before ice out. So I think that's just good to note too. We are on track with that. Ideally, we continue to do well though and make up time. Our goal is to get done as quickly as we can done efficiently.
Yep, and you'll start seeing a little bit where we do. I mean, we've got other avenues to flex as we need to make sure that we are expediting the schedule as we need to. So you might see some crews out there on Saturdays doing some work at this point too, just to make sure that we are tracking to be done with this before ice is on.
So you can see the pile driving's on the top, but then we're also noting, there'll be steel, precast, eventually finished materials, electrical work towards the end. So Krause-Anderson's continuing to kind of tinker with what all we show on here. And as he mentioned, all of this is going on that website. so folks can turn there and see the latest good information, drone flyovers, and ideally a time-lapse video soon.
Yep.
Could you provide the web address for the website where people can get this information?
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, and we lost our presentation, but it's Q&A time anyways. So what questions do you guys have for us?
Perfect, good timing. All right, questions? Anybody? Jeff?
The structural steel, so we've got the pilings, and we've got the precast, and the structural steel is like the base of the railings, or what is that piece of it?
The structural steel is more what connects the precast to the piling. So on the top of each, what you're seeing right now is you're seeing the can pile being installed along the boardwalk. So you're kind of seeing the path being constructed. Now you're going to see caps being welded to the top, and you're going to see H-pile going inside of those cans. And that's what's going to be the actual structure that holds the precast. So essentially next week, we start welding on the pile caps. So there's 36 total pile caps, and now you'll see one of the barges now starting to move back to the beginning, and you'll see it progressively install H-pile. It's going to be pumping concrete into those can piles, and then it's going to weld the pile cap on. When we're going to be shooting for probably 4 pile caps a week when we really start moving on that, and we're going to be tracking. So as soon as we get the first, that's when we can actually field verify, because it's going to be important then at that point that we field verify what that cap looks like, the structural steel, so we can modify as needed the precast.
So as Bob's talking about, he's talking about process. So not everything's super sequential and easy. Like, oh, we do this, then this. You know, there's like a pace that certain processes can set, and then the next process can go at their own pace that kind of has to fit with it. Some things when we put it out there, we have to come back and verify exactly where it is before we can confirm and get the material that connects with it. We thought it was going to be designed like this. We got it into place. We're confirming it looks like that. We can now order our related material and move forward. Really important part of the process. But I always talk about how construction accordions, you can kind of see how then, you know, he can get ahead on one thing and then the next thing's coming. So that second assembly has been really key for our contractors. As you can tell when he's talking about it, you can kind of zero in, or maybe this is me loving construction, the limiting factor is the assembly. He's like, oh, we need to go back, this assembly can do this fast. So you start to understand moving on water, it's like we can only go as fast as these assemblies can go. So the investment by the contractor, supported by Kraus Anderson, and then the city acknowledging that's happening, getting the second assembly out there, allowing our contractor to try to drive forward in the schedule and find an efficient sequence, especially as we add in new activities, will be, and will continue to be key.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll allow us to not have to jump back and forth as much. I mean, essentially, we can keep going on pile, finish the pile, while another crew is working on the steel progressing versus jumping back and forth.
What's been your biggest surprise so far?
Good
or bad?
I thought I'd get a lot more calls. I thought, to be honest, I thought, I mean, it has not been as loud. I mean, before I came over here, I went down, walked down the shoreline, talked to everybody, and there was plenty of people down there that have been watching. And I mean, yeah, I have not, they're definitely keeping tabs on it, but I mean, they've been surprised too with, I guess, the noise. It hasn't been as bad, I think, as we thought it was going to be.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Parkhill. Anybody else with questions? Yes. Councilmember Plekish.
You mentioned that you're on track to get the barges off before the lake freezes. What if we get an early freeze or there's some delay along the way that extends it? Then what happens if you don't make that?
Right now, we're working on making sure we've kind of got every other option kind of covered. That's where we're looking at flexing with weekend work as we need to. We're looking at different points too of access. If we need to, if something were to happen, can we get out somewhere closer so we can make sure that we can work nearer to the station and not have to cross the lake. I mean, it's easier to kind of get some of this equipment out than it would be to get it in. So
We would be talking to you or looking at savings within the project to address overtime before we would ever not have our assemblies out before ice out.
Yep, and I mean, and we're definitely tracking where the weather is and making sure that we're making adjustments to account for that ahead of time. But I mean, right now the piles have been driving per what we anticipated. Everything is going pretty efficient on the pile driving. So.
And what is that date that you're looking at?
The ice out date,
Right.
December 6th.
Right now,
December-
right now it would be having everything with the barge by that first week of December, and we're trying to buy some time on the end there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you. Thanks for your update tonight, too. Just a couple of questions about these pile caps. How come you only need 36? Do you only have to do half of the piles that you?
No, each pile cap, so when you look at the pile out there, there's 2 pile that are at each location. So the pile cap spans 2 pile. So for every 2 pile that you see, there's gonna be a frame on top of that, and that would be the single pile cap.
That's the one cap. Okay, so then when you see that, you'll start to see then from there where the precast goes and then where the decking.
Yep, you should be able to kind of see how that path is gonna look once you start seeing these pile caps.
We're gonna rise out of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, cool, thanks.
Wonderful. Well, this is a complicated project. I mean, it's effectively, we're building a bridge. And it's a very exciting one, not just for the city of Wayzata, but for the region, the state. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, in the country. It's so thank you. Thank you for all your hard work, your diligence. You know, this is a very, very important and project for us that has been in the works for well over a decade. And so to see it come to fruition and knowing that the clock's ticking and we're going to start to be able to see things literally come out of the water here soon is super exciting. So thank you very much. We look forward to ongoing updates, and I know we're approving some things with regard to some value engineering savings. Thank you for that very much. Very much appreciated. We look forward to seeing more. Oh, thank you very much. All right. We have one slip for our public forum this evening, and I would like to bring up Maureen. Is it Fallon? Failer, pardon me. If you could come up to the microphone and introduce yourself by providing your name and address. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name's Maureen Failer, and our address is 3850 Shoreline Drive. And it really is an honor and a privilege to be here this evening. I want to compliment you on a wonderful chamber executive president that you have. I've worked with Becky for years, so it's good to see you, Becky. But I am the new executive director for the Hope Chest for Breast Cancer Foundation. And prior to Hope Chest, I have a lot of regard and respect for city councils because I also ran the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce for 10 years, and then the Dakota County Regional Chamber of Commerce for 5 years. So working with local units of government, city councils, I just have a lot of regard, and congratulations on your award. I think we have one slide, I think.
Was that submitted to staff earlier today, the slide?
Yeah, I don't have a slide, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. That's okay. Just real quickly, Hope Chest was founded in 2001, and the main purpose was to help cancer patients with financial relief. And the founder, Barbara Hensley, felt very strongly that nobody should have to suffer alone with a diagnosis of breast cancer. And she had lost 2 of her sisters to breast cancer. So the foundation started in 2001, and to date, over 22 years, we have provided over $2.5 million in patient grants and have served over 6,000 patients within Minnesota. And that is through a lot of hard work and support through donors, corporate sponsors, and community stakeholders. So we're very appreciative of that. I just want to give you a couple of statistics, and then I'm going to tell just a quick story. So 78% of our patients are the primary income earner in the household. 73% have household incomes of less than $50,000. 42% have household incomes of less than $25,000. The average patient demographic is a single parent with 4 dependents in the household. So you can imagine if the income is only $50,000 and you have 4 dependents plus yourself, and you're dealing with a diagnosis of breast cancer, how daunting and scary it might be. So the fact that Hope Chest can give just a small bit of relief is something that I feel grateful about every day when I show up to work. I just want to share a quick little story. We received a patient grant from a woman who lives outside of the metro area. She lives up in Baxter, Minnesota. And she had heard about Hope Chest through a civic organization that has supported us over this last year. And she had told me that her car was in the auto repair shop. It needed some much-needed maintenance work. It was a 13-year-old Toyota Camry, and it hadn't been properly maintained. And you can figure out, guess why. And so she was wondering if there was any financial relief or support she could receive. And I said, well, yes, absolutely. We have an online application. You can fill that out. And we can turn around these requests very quickly, 2 to 3 days in most cases. So it is quick because the need is now. So we talked, and I said, well, give me the name of the mechanic so I can call and just verify, because we have some processes we have to go through. So I called Joe's Garage. There is Joe's Garage in Baxter, Minnesota. And Joe is an owner. He, I think, is like 3rd tradition of the family business. And I said, Joe, this is Maureen from Hope Chest, and we have a request to help a patient pay her bill for the auto repairs. And I asked how much it was. And it was more than what she could afford, because she told me what she could afford. And I said, Joe, come on, what can you do? Is there any way we can work together to help this young woman? And he said, well, let me check and let me get back to you. And I said, I'll pay for the labor, but just see what you can do for parts and things, you know. And so he called me back, and he was all excited because he was able to cut the bill in half. And Hope Chest for Breast Cancer Foundation was able to pay for the other half. And he was so giddy that he could make a difference in someone's life. So he said, would you please call this woman and tell her? And I said, no, Joe, you're going to call and you're going to tell this woman because you made a difference. So I get a call, I think about an hour. So Joe says, oh, by the way, Maureen, her tires are bald and she really needs 4 new tires. And I'm like, Joe, what can you do? Come on. And he's like, all right, let me make a phone call. I'll get back to you. And so he called, and he was able to get the tires donated and put on. We paid for the labor. So he called and told the patient the good news. And she called me an hour later in tears. And these weren't tears of sorrow. These were tears of gratitude because she was able to take her 4 kids down to St. Cloud so she could get her chemo treatments. She was ecstatic that she could go get her chemo treatments. And that is something that I can't imagine what patients go through. So that is just one story I thought I would share with you. Our resale store is just down the road. Come and shop. We'd love to have you. But again, we do make a difference, and it's because of supporters from all over. So happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any questions?
No questions, but just a thank you for what you do and the impacts that you have on people's lives. It's tremendous that we have that in our community, and the resale shop is amazing. And I wish you had more of them around. Great.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. No, it is, I learned about Hope Chess, probably right about the time it started at Wayzata Community Church. I was at an event, and Ms. Hensley was actually the one who was speaking about it. And it was really quite moving and has been a mainstay in our community in being able to help so many well-deserving folks. So thank you very much for that wonderful work. All right, City Manager, do we have any remote comments as part of public forum this evening?
Madam Mayor, we do not.
Okay. Then we'll move on. Next item on our agenda is new agenda items. Council, anybody have an item that they would like to bring up for discussion at a later meeting? No?
I have one, Mayor.
Okay.
Did you have one, Jeff?
No, I do not.
I would like to bring up or have discussions regarding the short and long-term rentals in the city of Wayzata. And so I don't want us to lose sight of that. So I don't know if it's something that we would like to put on our workshop for still this year or for the 2024 calendar. I just don't want to lose sight of that.
I think we already have that on our work plans, correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Iverson, that is on our draft kind of update that we're doing to the strategic plan. So we will be talking about that, probably in brief, but that'll lead to further conversations about timing and everything. We'll be talking about that at the next council meeting at the workshop.
There you go.
Perfect, good. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anybody else? No. All right, then let's move on to the consent agenda. We have a number of items. I will read through those. As part of that list, I will be requesting that we pull one of those items, and I can go ahead and address that once I read through the list of those items on our consent agenda. All right, we have the approval of the City Council workshop and regular meeting minutes of September 5, 2023. Approval of the check register, approval of municipal licenses, receipt of the police activity report, receipt of the building activity report, adoption of Resolution 52-2023, support for 2024 bonding appropriation request to Minnesota Management and Budget, award of contract to Widmer Construction LLC for an erosion repair project at 210 Central Avenue South, approval of the first reading of ordinance 827, amending City Code Section 311 and the city policy pertaining to boat slips, award of contract to Energy Management Collaborative LLC to install electric vehicle charging stations at the Lake Street and Berry Avenue parking lot, approval of first reading of ordinance 832, amending Chapter 918 of the zoning ordinance related to fencing / screening, approval of change order with Construction Systems, Inc. for Panaway Lake Walk Steel contract. And the last item that was added, and this is part of our amended agenda, is the approval of second reading and adoption of ordinance 830, amending the official zoning map of the city of Wayzata to rezone 201 Lake Street East. Couple of items. I would like to pull item I for discussion prior to new business. I understand we have a few council members who have some questions on that, as do I. So we will pull item I for discussion. And then before I move on to the next item and kind of the administrative piece of things. Does anybody on the council have any questions for any of the other items? No, Kathy?
I do, Mayor. Not requesting that it be polled, but rather a comment in regard to item G on it. I would like to thank Mike Kelly and Jeff for the hard work that they did and the impact that it'll have to these 5 residents or these 5 homes on Central, right off of Central Avenue. So just kudos for your hard work and getting this done in a timely manner. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, seeing that there are no other questions, would someone care to make a motion? Before I get to that, pardon me. For item, the last item, L, pardon me. I'd like to take a separate vote on that since I was not here for that vote at our last meeting. So would someone care to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through H, J, and K?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McDonald. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been first and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. And we'll take a separate, I will abstain from this vote. If someone would care to make a motion to approve item L, approval of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 830, amending the official zoning map of the city of Wayzata to rezone 201 Lake Street East.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Iverson, and a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
All right, thank you very much. That motion passes as well. So for item I, we will actually address that now before the public hearing. And that is the award of contract to Energy Management Collaborative LLC to install electric vehicle charging stations at the Lake Street and Berry Avenue parking lot. City Manager?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions the council have. Just a little background. This project was identified in our CIP as kind of an add-on to the parking lot construction that was originally contemplated and passed a few years ago. It's been in operation for a year and a half now, and it was always a part of the plan to add in EV chargers. It just took a little while. I know this was on the work plan of the Energy Environment Committee as well. It would be kind of bookending the big city parking lots on one side of Lake Street to the other, because we do have a couple chargers in the Mill Street parking rep as well that are pretty heavily utilized. There is some, and I think getting to kind of the conversation I think the council wants to have. Essentially, the goal here is that the
store our annual investments towards capital projects? How do we make sure that we're continuing to put away money every year to pay for our capital investments? And lastly was to invest in new positions and invest in compensation for our employees to retain and funnel up to some of the budget impacts. So what you'll be officially voting on would be to set that preliminary levy. And so you'll see there's 3 main areas that comprise our levy. The first is general, that's the levy last few years, I think it's important to look at how we've been doing against many of our peers. So when looking at 7 other cities around us and their history of levy increases year to year, we have been at or below the average. So I think that that means that we're being very planful. Want to make those investments. So we've kind of been staying kind of below average in terms of what those levy increases are. I'll be interested to watch where people's preliminary levies come in, and then I'll report back on that as we set the final levy. But anecdotally, I've heard 8 to 12% is what many folks are talking about their prelim levies are going to come in at. And ultimately, that builds up, and we want to care about what our tax rates are. So as our value grows and potentially the taxes that we need also grow, that forms our tax rate. And historically speaking, if you look at those same 7 cities, Wayzata has been one of the lowest in terms of its tax rate. And so even with a 9.98% proposed levy increase next year, because we have value outpacing that, we would actually see a property tax rate decrease next year. And so we're already one of the lowest, and we're getting even lower despite having a levy increase. And the reason I point that out is because your tax rate is what determines, you know, if you had the same value house in Wayzata or in Excelsior or in Plymouth, your tax rate's going to determine how much you would pay for that same house in local taxes. And so based on that, Wayzata, like I mentioned before, is one of the lowest. So we think that we're providing a good value for our city services. Reported that they felt they got good or excellent value of city services considering the property taxes that they pay. And I mention that because I think while we're still proposing a levy increase of maybe more than with, timed these investments well, that we've been planful and that we've been good stewards to result in our community feeling like they're getting a good value for the services we provide. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but the official actions we're looking for you to take tonight would be to adopt Resolution 49-2023 to certify to the county auditor the preliminary property tax levy for taxes payable 2024, and adopt Resolution 50-2023 approving the preliminary 2024 budgets.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Yeager. Questions of staff? No? All right. Oh, you did such a great job presenting. There are no questions. So what are the odds? Well, no, it really was a phenomenal, it's very clear, very concise. I appreciate it. For clarity, this is the preliminary tax levy that gets submitted to Hennepin County. At this point, we set it. It will be at this rate. It cannot go above it, correct? But when we set the final, it can certainly still come down.
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, very good. All right, would someone like to start discussion or just jump right into a resolution? What are we thinking? Everyone's so quiet. It's been like, feels like 4 months, 5 months, 4 months worth of work. A lot of work on staff's part. Coming down to this. All right.
Okay, I'll start, Madam
Yes.
Mayor.
Thank you, Molly.
As I was listening to Deputy Director Yeager's presentation, I was sort of thinking the same thing. Wow, this is really comprehensive. And, and maybe there's not a ton of comments, but this is something we've worked on and prioritized for quite some time. So I support the resolution and the preliminary tax levy, and glad to have worked through this up until this point where it's right now tonight feels rather easy.
Fantastic. Thank you. Councilmember Parkhill?
I would just say thank you for, this is my first time going through this process, and I thought it was very clear, very specific. You left no stone unturned, and I felt very confident in your guys' presentation and wherewithal about the numbers. So thank you for that. I wasn't sure what to expect coming in, and you guys made it very straightforward and a good process. So I completely support Resolution 49 and 50, and thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Parkhill. Councilmember Iverson?
I'm going to get in the weeds just a bit.
Questions or comments?
Comments.
Okay.
And some of the comments are suggestions that as we were in our strategic meeting, and specifically regarding the fee structure. So it's probably not the first time I've mentioned this, but I think walk away as we look at bringing more potential revenue in. I have always kind of questioned what we charge for our patios. And there's other ones, but specifically this always seems to stick out for me.
So, but, pardon me for interrupting, but we're going to deal with the fee structure in the next item.
We are, okay,
Yes.
then I will hold that comment.
Okay. I just want to make sure that
Okay.
we're aligned on the items that we want to.
So in regards to the tax levy, we're at the 9.98. I personally would prefer to see it 2 to 3% lower. And so I hope that that's our initial goal, is that we come in lower than what is in front of us today. So I haven't decided how I'm going to vote yet. I was honestly, a little shocked to see that it was still that high. I was hoping to see it just a little bit lower, so.
Okay. All right, very good. I would like to talk maybe a little bit more about that in terms of items. So the last time we had a workshop, there were some items that were presented that could potentially help lower the levy. And to Councilmember Iverson's statement, have all of those been incorporated into what we're seeing here tonight? And is there still additional downward movement possible? And if so, where? Where do we need to cut if we were to get to a point where we're at, I'm just going to throw out a number, I'm not saying this is the number, 7%.
Thanks for your question, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Iverson. So yes, the direction that I took from the last council workshop, the 3 items that I presented as other options to potentially cut would be to delay or cut the additional staff, or to look at reducing our capital transfers out. The direction I got from that workshop was to reduce our capital transfers out to get our levy below a 10% increase. Now, there's definitely still more on the table. It's really a question of priority of the council. Do you want to prioritize, retaining that capital investment at the same level? Do you want to retain keeping those positions? As well as we're still, since we're still at the preliminary stage, we likely have some extra cushion in the budget as we're waiting for results back on, say, our compensation study and a couple of other renewals that we don't know the exact dollar amount as of yet. So I'd say downward trajectory is definitely possible, and I would look to have a follow-up conversation with the council about that in November. Once we as staff kind of have our final numbers in there, to ask that question about priority of, here's where we are, do you want to make further cuts before we get into the final in December?
Is that helpful?
Yeah, I guess if something I would add as we look forward is, I wrote down, I'm not convinced that we need another parks person. And so just as you move forward, Aurora, just look at that and help me understand exactly what that position is and the need for that position. So thank you.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Plickish.
Yeah, first, I'd like to say you did an outstanding job on briefing us. Very clear, very direct, all the detail that we need. And of course, we've been doing this for months, working into this. So none of these numbers should be a surprise to us because we kind of settled on those before. But like my colleagues here on the dais, I am still uncomfortable with that 9.98%. However, I know what went into it, and it's a delicate balancing act of the things that we need in services and employees. And I think there was a rational justification for adding people to the police department and for the amounts that we wanted to spend on improving the services to maintain the reputation that we have. So again, it is a delicate balancing act. It's a number that I don't like to see, but I kind of feel like it's kind of the right number, even though I'd still like to see it come down. But again, we already talked about the trade-offs, and we knew that coming in here. And if there's a way for you to cut down on it, I'd love to see that. I just don't know where it would come from. So I support this as it is. Uncomfortable with the number, but I understand what's behind it.
Great. Did I forget anybody before? No. Okay, just me. A couple of questions that came to mind as we were walking through this. Do we have an estimated cost of the Lake Walk insurance?
Madam Mayor, yes. Well, I think if I'm pulling from memory, which is dangerous, and I don't have my budget worksheet in front of me, I want to say I was guessing $15,000. I have absolutely no idea how confident that is. I'd have to pull the budget spreadsheet, so I say
Not
that with
a
a
fair
big
question.
caveat.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And my apologies. That was unfair of me to ask. It literally, as we're walking through it, I'm like, the reason I asked for that, I mean, that's really not going to move the needle that much, right? If we're talking 15,000, but I didn't know if we were talking 15,000 or 150,000, right? As a caveat to all of that, I would say those monies, are we looking to the Conservancy to fund that? Because we did say we would not put that on the taxpayers, right? Or come out of the general fund, and here we are talking about the general fund. So I would feel more comfortable funding that in other ways besides the general fund. Just throwing it out there. Construction, nothing comes out of the general fund. We get reimbursement and coverage through the Conservancy and their fundraising efforts. I would just say, can we please take a look at that? I don't know where my fellow council members are on that issue, but City Manager, do you want to address that?
Madam Mayor, we can certainly talk with the Conservancy about that and see if they're willing to have a conversation about adding that to the maintenance and operations costs, which they have agreed to pay for. But maybe it's a good topic that we can talk about in our partnership meeting at the next one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does seem to fall under maintenance and operations, but other thoughts?
You actually triggered a question for me that maybe you know the answer to this. Does the city or our insurance company pay for a loss of life? If somebody was...
Can we take that offline? Is that relevant to the budget?
It potentially could have a huge impact. But yes, we can take that offline, but we should find that out.
I would just say that we have liability insurance that covers that.
Okay. All right. So that was the cost of the Lake Walk insurance. The slide on the market value growth, was I misreading something? Or did we literally have that level of growth between 21 and 22? And if so, can someone tell me where?
Yeah, so
What constitutes between 41 million, I'm rounding, to $321 million? I mean, that is
it's substantial.
ginormous.
Yeah, Madam
Is that
Mayor.
a technical term, ginormous?
Yes, yes, it is.
All right, great.
Madam Mayor, that's a wonderful question. So this is actually, this is market value. So this is the market value of all the property. And
If we
so
put
the-
everything on the market, in that point in time, December 31st, 2021, we had 82 million, and we jumped to 377.
That's just the growth, though.
Right, yeah,
Not the
that's-
whole base.
Right, but it's still a significant growth, and that's really due to, I would say, a couple of things. One, depending on what time some of the existing new construction finished, it may, be finished in 1 year, but not fall onto the tax rolls until many years later. But two, we saw very uncharacteristic market value growth. I mean, you've heard it in the assessing, the local Board of Appeal and equalization hearings. There has been just massive, massive growth in property values. And so we saw that to levels that we hadn't seen previously. So yeah, I would say it's not typical, and I would expect this to come back down.
Okay. Yeah, that would be frightening if it continued to rise at that trajectory. You talked about median growth that we've seen 16% about in terms of change of assessed values.
Yep.
In your conversations with the county assessor's office, what are they anticipating for the coming year?
I'd have to pull back to my memories, but I felt like I recall them mentioning something closer to 12%.
So lower than what we've seen in
Right.
the last couple of years, but still a
Still significant.
substantial increase.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, that's interesting. It's an interesting time of year. It is a lot of work. You kind of drag us through it.
Me personally.
It has to be done. It's not our favorite topic as we go through it, but it is vitally important, and you've done a beautiful job of getting us to where we are today, so thank you for that. All right, can we move to the last slide, please?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I made you go back. All right, so we have two recommended actions. I would ask the city attorney if it's okay if we may combine those.
Madam Mayor, I'd recommend you take them separately.
Separately?
Just, yeah,
Okay.
they're for various reasons, if you don't mind.
Fantastic. So we will do that. So who would like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 49-2023, certifying to the county auditor the preliminary property tax levy for taxes payable 2024?
Madam Mayor, I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhill, and a second.
Second.